Hello guys and welcome to first ever episode of VHS Showdown!
Hey.
Fantastic name.
Yes, a great name. So this podcast here is a chance for some middle-aged men to relive their youth and sort of reaffirm our belief, I guess, that our childhood was better than millennials' childhood.
I think it really was.
Yes, it was. So the idea is we're going to go back and rewatch some old films from the 80s.
Yeah, well, I think it would be nice if people watch this, but I think mainly we're doing it just so we can hang around together.
Yes, because now we have children and jobs and lives, we don't see each other anymore.
We all work together.
We do, yes. So we'll spend some more time with each other.
Yeah.
What do you hope to get out of this podcast, Tom?
Well, I'm a big fan of the 80s, as you know, Murph, and it's a great chance just to talk about something I love with somebody else rather than the mirror for a change.
The man in the mirror. And what do you want to get out of this, Lee?
Well, it'd be good to hang out, it'd be good to see some films we haven't seen before, and I like to dig up facts after I've seen a film, just so I've got a few
serious gems for us
in my repertoire. Well, potentially, I don't know whether you know them or not, so
find out. Okay, so the format we're doing it is we're picking a random year for each person, and then that person has to go and pick a film from that year, and obviously the years are the 80s. So Tarby was given the year 1986.
Yeah, this year was at 1986, which was already loaded with absolute bangers. It was really hard to pick one, but I thought if we're going to start this, then we might as well do something that everybody would have heard of, even if they haven't seen it. The film we went for was Ferris Bueller. That was my pick. And this is really interesting to me because I've seen this film about 50 times, but never all at once. So there's bits of this missing for me.
50 times?
Yeah, gotta be. It's on all the time. It's on everywhere.
And you were interrupted 50 times?
Well, it's more like channel hopping, you know, and so it's like you put something on for 5 minutes, then you want to see what else is on, so it's like, you know, when you turn over and you don't know what's going on, it's kind of like you get out of it, don't you? So watch something from the beginning.
And it's been on 50 times for you to see this.
47.
What about you, Lee? Have you seen this film before?
I saw this once, about 20 years ago, I reckon.
Oh, what, in the early noughties? So even then you were watching it?
Yeah, very late 90s, early noughties. I saw it once.
So neither of you guys actually watched this when it came out?
No.
Well, I remember seeing this when I was very, very, very little. Because I remember it was the first time you ever heard the Beatles. So I'd got quite good memories of this one. And then I think I must have seen it on TV maybe a few more times as I sort of grew up. So I'm fairly familiar with it.
Did the main star of this programme, like when you watched it when you were like so little, then did you think they were like a full-grown adult?
Yes, totally. I thought Ferris Bueller was, pretty much an adult.
Well, I watched it with my son last night and he was like, "Daddy, why is he a man?" I told him it was about some school kid that bunked off school, and that's what he said.
Well, the guy who plays Cameron's like 29.
He's 29.
He's 29 in the making of that movie. Yeah. So I think Matthew Broderick is like, what's he going to be? Sort of.
He's
like,
24.
He's 24,
and the girl was 19.
Right. Okay.
He's older than I thought, though. I thought he was like sort of 16, 17.
What, his character?
No, in real life, I thought he was true to age.
But he does look relatively young. But
I just thought, like, you know, it was like when I was a kid, people like that, you thought they were like, oh my god, look at that old bloke.
Yes.
And so now you watch it, it's like, fuck, I wish I was his age.
Anybody over the age of 17 when you're a child, though, is an adult.
Yeah.
You don't know the difference. But yes, it's a classic. I mean, I came into it knowing it was a classic. Sort of. What were your guys' thoughts, having not been so familiar with it, I guess?
Wow. It's really hard because it's kind of like, to me, I was trying to be objective and just look at it as it was, but I was also thinking, how many other films have I seen that have been inspired by this or have copied it a bit since 1986? There must have been loads and loads, like dozens and dozens. And now it's
at least
hard.
50.
Yeah, maybe 48. But yeah, do you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to know. You watch it and you try to think that this is like probably one of the earliest times this idea was done. So you've got to try and not be clouded by films you've seen since. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard. But I think as an original, you've got to give it points, haven't you? Like, you know, it's
brilliant.
It's one of the first.
I thought it was fucking brilliant.
It is, isn't it?
I thought it was real good. The thing about the 80s films is they age in a weird way, whereas like the humour sometimes it degrades. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think it's
just weird. That's what I mean. So the humour in this was great, I thought.
Yeah. You could release this now, I think. You could imagine someone like Seth Rogen or Judd Apatow, those sort of guys, putting together something like this now. Well, obviously they're massively inspired by John Hughes, and this is obviously what inspired. I mean, Ferris Bueller, Ryan Reynolds has nicked his entire shtick off Ferris Bueller, really. Yeah,
so I was just trying to think, right, how many times is this idea of, like, you know, kid left alone to do his own thing, go crazy, have a wild day?
Home Alone.
Well, this is the thing. So John Hughes did Ferris Bueller in 1986, and he said that he had this idea he wanted to do a film about a kid gone wild for the day, and this guy said, go for it. So he just did Ferris Bueller. 1987, Chris Columbus did Adventures in Babysitting, which is another kids gone wild kind of program, and then John Hughes.
Is this what you've been googling?
No. This was yesterday.
Kids Gone Wild.
Oh, shit. Thankfully, no. But anyway, so yeah, basically you're one doing Ferris Bueller in 86, Adventures in Babysit from 87, Chris Columbus and John Hughes, and then in 1990 they get together in Home Alone. It's like you can tell there was a fucking winning theme going on there, like, you know.
Kids Gone Wild.
But off that subject, Kids Gone Wild, I'm going to jump around a tiny bit here. Do you know the headmaster, Jeffrey Jones?
He's brilliant.
He's a registered sex offender.
What?
Oh shit! Yes, I did know that actually.
For soliciting pornographic images of a 14-year-old
Oh,
girl.
well, that's where this podcast taking a rather dark turn quite early on in the first episode. So yeah, no, I did know that. All right, that's horrendous. Put that aside. He's great in this.
He's good in Beetlejuice as well.
It is him.
Yeah,
I had to look that up. I saw him and I was like, is that the same guy?
He's up there with Walter Peck.
Oh, I was thinking it's like most unlikable twat of the 80s.
Yeah,
like.
the greatest 80s dickhead.
I spent ages thinking it was, like, is that Charles Dance?
No.
Is that the one at the Golden Child?
Charles Dance is in Golden Child, yeah. But anyway, in this, he is arguably one of the 80s best dickheads, I think. Up there, yeah, definitely.
Well, even more so now.
Well, even more so, yes. He is.
He transcends film.
He is quite the dickhead. But every scene he's in is hilarious in it, as and the receptionist lady as well.
Planes, Trains and Automobiles.
Yes,
yeah. She was very of her time, wasn't she? Like, you know, she did a bit in the 80s and that was it.
You think he's a righteous dude?
Yeah. She was always like the mum in curlers or something, all this like stuck up Brit or something, like that was it, yeah, and like 1989 came and that was the end of her.
I think it's very rare that I watch a film these days and I do actually laugh out loud, and I did laugh out loud quite a few times during this.
When he was on the phone to what he thought was his dad and that music cue came in. That's real good.
You're an asshole. Yeah, so that whole phone scene with him on there. The weird thing about this film is like Ferris Bueller actually has no arc. He is just like, he's a smarmy git at the beginning and he's a smarmy git at the end, and the whole film is actually about Cameron.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all about Cameron.
It is literally,
It's true,
Ferris Bueller, because it's named, you tend to watch him, but you don't realise all the way through it's more about his growth, and it's kind of what.
And also, when he kisses her at the front, she's like, yeah, it's a very sort of entertaining film. And like,
that's where it started.
The Kid's Gone Wild. And we're back to that. Right, it might be on the cutting room floor. So fantastic film, lots of very laugh out loud bits. Like we said, it is about sort of Cameron really and his journey.
I don't like his face.
No?
No, his face gets on my tits. I don't know what it is about it.
Oh, he's good for the role, though, isn't he? He's like perfect for that part.
I know what he's trying to say, though. You don't see him in many roles. It's like that geezer who flies a plane in Mad Max or something. He's like that Australian
He's
guy.
in Young Guns as well.
He's got a very distinctive face, and he's only been in certain roles.
Oh, what, the guy who plays Cameron's in Young Guns?
He's Young Guns or Young Guns 2.
Is he? He's in Succession, which is a great TV series on at the moment. Well, same with Ferris Bueller, actually. Do you know what I mean? He is a bit annoying at times. If you knew him in real life, you'd be like, he's an absolute twat.
Yeah. I was thinking when I was watching it, he'd have been a good Spider-Man.
He would have been a very good Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Yes, he would have been a very good Peter Parker.
Not as good as Michael J. Fox, but he would have been.
He would have been
up there, like.
He would have been class. I think some of the things that I laughed out loud in this were some of the little gags. Like as it goes on, you just like say Ferris, like really.
Yes.
Like, you know,
it was in the paper.
Yes,
it was the same day.
Yeah. So all that's and everybody, she sort of speaks at the police station. You know, we're rooting for him. He said he was ill that morning. Like everybody in town knows.
Speaking of the police station, Charlie Sheen's got a brilliant cameo. And Charlie Sheen's, you forget what a star he is and how fucking cool he was when he was like in his prime.
He's very cool in this.
He's so cool.
Yeah. He said he stayed awake for like 48 hours.
Just for that part.
Just so he looked like he was on drugs.
So he looked like he was properly
That made me laugh, that drug joke.
Drugs. Did you read about some of the other people they were going to cast as Ferris Bueller?
Yeah, wasn't Anthony Michael Hall?
I think he was one of them.
One of the guys out of Weird Science.
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, yeah.
Jim Carrey was one. Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
They talked about Robert Downey Jr., who arguably could have done it. He would have been.
I mean, I think if we're going to be talking about 80s films here, I think like there's
a podcast.
But yeah, I think the Brat Pack are going to feature in almost everything at some point, unless we go a bit rogue and we've got some sort of slightly more independent films. But you talk Charlie Sheen, Emilio Estevez, and Rob Lowe, and Molly Ringwald, and all that lot.
Patrick Swayze.
Like there's loads. Every film, Andy McCarthy, that lot.
Because Matthew Broderick was one of the Brat.
Yeah, well, pretty much, yeah.
He was at the same sort of time, wasn't he? It was always weird because obviously he was so good in this, at playing that sort of smarmy git, but I always felt like his career didn't really go that big, but he had a horrendous car crash like a couple of years after this, didn't he?
Just after this, he's having a secret relationship with Jennifer Grey, just before Dirty Dancing was released. And he had a car crash in Ireland where he killed 2 women. And they tried to charge him for dangerous driving, but he got away with careless driving and was fined $100.
Oh, really? Sure. Well,
yeah. And that was it. But at the end of it, I think the family are still like, what the fuck? But yeah, another side note of that, Jennifer Grey reckoned she had like survivor's guilt for years and years and years and years, and withdrew a lot from Hollywood.
They both did a bit, really, didn't they? I mean, Buster Rogers didn't really come back till Godzilla, wasn't it?
He did a lot of stuff. Cable Guy, Godzilla, fucking Inspector Gadget.
That's where I know Matthew Broderick from. He didn't exist to me before Cable Guy.
But yeah, so
yeah, seriously.
She was in a lot of pain ever since the car crash, but then she went to have some titanium plates in her spine, like in the late noughties, and when they went to operate on her, they found some cancer that had not yet metastasized. So it saved her.
Wow.
So there you go.
That's one incredibly interesting fact.
There you go. I stayed up all night preparing.
You did your research. To
hit you with that one.
Spoilers in the skates.
Yeah. So what other bits of the movie did you like?
Oh, the funny bit that made me probably laugh out loud was Cameron on the phone. It's just that's where his face comes into being of use. It's kind of like he contorts it, but not kind of like as much as Jim Carrey. He's just got his own thing that he can do. But that made me laugh. It's just because he's bollocking this guy. And there's just a lot going on.
The whole scene in the restaurant, and then they're trying to get the table, and he's a bit sort of snooty to him, and then they call up and he talks too slow. He's pretending to be like, and then the next call it's Cameron pretending to be a police officer, but he's using the same
voice. Yeah, that's funny.
Although I do have a problem with that, actually. I did wonder. It's like, because they pretend to be Abe Froman, the Abe Froman party to get in, and it's like, is that just fucking lucky or what, that Abe Froman didn't turn up?
Yeah. No, I did think. I thought,
it's kind of like, boy, that was a lucky name to pick. What was he, the Sausage King of the Midwest or something?
Oh, you're the Sausage King of the Midwest.
Yeah, cool. I think the whole stuff with the car is kind of, when they go to sort of pick it up and they pull it in sort of behind them just as they sort of turn up there, and that's supposed to be Bill Paxton was offered the role.
Oh, is it?
Of the bloke who drove the car, but he turned it down. Because obviously he was in Weird Science, and so John Hughes knew him from there. How many good films has John Hughes done? I think that's Weird Science, Home Alone, Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I mean, it's like so many sort of good John Hughes films, and 101 Dalmatians as well, actually. But he offered Bill Paxton was the role of the car attendant, but he turned it down because he said it wasn't big enough, and then he said he always regretted it because John Hughes never offered him a role ever again, and he was like, fuck you.
Now he's dead.
Yes, now he is.
What a ledge.
It's only recent, isn't it?
2017. Yeah, I liked all of the stuff with the headmaster. It was like a cartoon. It was like Tom and Jerry or something, and it was just a little too farcical, which was good. It was, like
it was really
get
weird
attacked by the dog behind the door and stuff.
Yeah, because there was like I felt that it's like all the way through. It's sort of like you keep forgetting it could quite easily just be a Sunday afternoon family film because it's got that gentle sort of soft focus feel about it, and then all of a sudden like that Ed Rooney will just be like he throws those flowers or something at that dog or something. He's like, "I got something for you, little fucker." Like, do you know what I mean? It's like it's like that's not family.
I think my only problem I had with it was when his sister kicked the headmaster in the face and then didn't recognise him. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what? Like, how does she not know it was him?
She kicks him 3 times.
It's quite funny.
She just had no idea who he was.
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that bit because she does recognise him at the end.
Yeah,
so it's like I kind of like.
I think a wizard.
I'm willing to gloss over that.
Yeah, just for the gags, it was still pretty funny.
There wasn't a lot I didn't like, to be honest with you, other than suspending my disbelief that she didn't recognise the principal in her kitchen.
All the 80s tech in it's cool as well. Do you know what I mean? Like the little synthesizer he's got when he's like, making all those sort of noises when he's pretending to be ill. And obviously it's hi-fi. Interestingly, I read a fact about it because, he goes on about he hasn't got a car. Well, if he actually bought that synthesizer in the film at the time, that would have cost him $8,000. So that would have been worth more than most
How did
cars.
You ever find that out? Was there a brand on it or something? Was there? Or?
A synthesizer, that sort of tech in the 80s.
I thought you meant you'd actually looked up the fucking brand. I was like, Jesus.
No, not myself. No,
that's dedication.
I'm
but still,
piggybacking on someone else's research.
But they weren't cheap.
No, and then it's just nice seeing all that. And in his bedroom's like that cool sort of 80s bedroom, the Union Jack on it. There's a Simple Minds poster on there. So do you know what I mean? It's got that cool sort of 80s look. Yeah.
Just to say, I mean, it's quite fun. I kind of imagined the way his bedroom was so elaborate, and it just occurred to me now when you say about that synth is that he's such a lad, isn't he, that maybe he's just wangled it out of somebody.
Yes, that's probably what he's done, isn't it? He's blagged that.
It leaves a lot to the imagination. I've just read a fact about the guy who plays Cameron. So Cameron wears all the way through like a Red Wings hockey shirt or something. I think it's hockey. Sorry if I'm wrong. Could be baseball. I'm not sure.
Sport.
But it's the wrong city. He's wearing the wrong t-shirt.
Yeah.
And the idea behind it is that like John Hughes said, no, he's got a horrible relationship with his dad, but he gets on really well with his granddad, and that's where his granddad's from. So he wears that shirt in support. But it's never mentioned. So it's like one of those things with a synth. You just got to imagine he's probably been given it as a gift or something. Or
there's the whole thing with Charlie Sheen's character. Do you know that he, because he mentions Ferris, there's more of a backstory to him in the original script. Was that Ferris's mum's trying to secure that deal with that family.
Oh yeah.
He's the son of that family. He was friends with Ferris, and Ferris tried to help him out, but he failed, and he ended up becoming a drug addict. That's why he wants to sort Cameron out, so he doesn't have these issues. But it never made the whole final cut. But that was the whole sort of storyline. It's all connected there. So, but yeah, I think one of the things about this film that I really like, it sort of encapsulates that America that probably only exists in like the E.T. and the Burbs, and it's that suburban 80s America.
Thought it was kind of, you could imagine some big fat director going, America doesn't want violence and killing. America wants family and fun.
Well, they did it in Ghostbusters of New York, didn't they? New York was like a character.
Yes.
And John Hughes wanted to do that for Chicago with this film. He wanted to make everyone feel like, this is Chicago. It was like, and he did. And I was watching it. It was like, fuck, it's real good. You could.
It's kind of like I'm sure it's obviously we're looking through it through rose-tinted Hollywood sort of glasses. So I'm sure it's nothing like that in reality. But it does make you sort of hark back to, you think, I think society probably peaked there, and I'm sure that's what every old person over the age of 40 now thinks, is that society was better there. But it does seem like, oh man, before phones and before that,
a simpler time.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like, obviously there's loads of terrible things happening at the time, but it's that sort of, I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think it was kind of like our parents sort of went through a war, and then our parents had like probably much less service, and at the time we were like, the 80s was a very experimental period. There was nothing ever done like it before, and it was just mental. Like everything went. So it was like films were crazy, music was crazy, people dressed crazy, and it was, everybody was learning. So all of a sudden the world was like sort of pretty free to do what it wanted.
That's what makes it such a cosy film, I think, is that sort of depiction of America, and it does make it. It's like a warm hug, isn't it, or something? It's very, very sort of cosy and nice. Soundtrack's great.
Soundtrack's good, yeah, and just the quality of the filming. It's sort of still crisp, isn't it? And it's it's well color graded.
The transitions are good in it. In the way that it makes a lot of jumps in the story that leaves like the watcher to, you have to like connect the dots. It's like.
But it doesn't leave it too long though. It's like, oh yeah, I see. Yeah,
and the next bit they're like, so you see it's jumping. Like he rings Cameron's in bed, and then next time you see he's on the phone in his house, doesn't show you him going around. It's sort of very good for the sort of viewer there. It sort of lets you sort of fill a lot of the blanks in sort of as it goes. Yeah, the soundtrack's obviously amazing. You've got was it boom boom boom.
That just reminds me of Tarby.
It's yellow. I don't know. I know they must have done much more, but there was only 2 songs he ever did that I know of, and neither one of them was that one you just did.
Yeah.
And the race.
Oh, was that them? Was it? Yeah. Oh, right, no, yeah, I didn't know.
You can hear similarity now, like, So yeah, I think they fucking cleaned up in the 80s.
Yeah,
pretty much gave it to every film that wanted it, and then they probably just live on an island somewhere.
That original tune didn't do that well until it was in this, and then they did. Yeah, they did really well after that with it.
And then obviously Twist and Shout by the Beatles.
Paul McCartney was upset that they put brass over Twist and Shout.
I thought the brass works really well, didn't it?
I read that as well, and he said it was too brassy. But
if you wanted brass in it, we would put it on it, he said.
I'm sure that the song is the original Beatles song.
Yeah, but you've got the brass band playing.
Yeah, so but it's supposed to be live. I mean, what else would a brass band do?
That's what John Hughes said. He's like, we only put a brass band over it because they were there.
It's like, it's not, they haven't changed the song. It's mental.
It's kind of amazing that you got away with a lot of that, Ferris. You wouldn't, in the days of the War on Terror, you'd be dragged off stage now if you sort of...
Part of their fun day, there's just a load of school kids all holding hands running across the field now. They're in that little chain. You'd be nicked straight away now.
It's very wholesome as well, isn't it? Because I don't think... There's not even any smoking in it, I don't think. It's just very unproblematic, isn't it? Like, I don't know if you've watched Back to the Future recently, but actually the bit where Biff is trying to rape Marty's mum is actually really dark. You watch it, way darker than I remember it as a kid. And a lot of times you watch an 80s film and there will be something you'd be like, oh dear, you can't do that now, or do you know what I mean? So but in this one, there's not really. There's no, all the humour's really like sort of, I don't know, it's just really sort of nice, and it's just a nice sort of wholesome film. You're quite easy to watch with your kids.
Yeah.
So, did you watch it with Bill?
Yeah, he really enjoyed it.
And Bill's what, 9?
9, yeah.
9, he liked it, did he?
Yeah, he thought it was really good, yeah. He's a big fan.
So what, any other bits about the film?
So it was a $5 million budget, and it took 70 million at the box office.
Wow.
So, yeah, it did really well.
Raking it in.
Just an interesting one, that the girl, Sloane Mia Sarah, she married Sean Connery's son, divorced him, and married Jim Henson's son.
What a muppet.
Wow. Hey! Any more facts?
Matthew Broderick's married to Sarah Jessica Parker.
He was.
Yes.
He's
Were they still together?
I think so. They did a TV series in 1990 which only lasted one season before it was cancelled, and it had Jennifer Aniston as the sister character.
Oh, right. Who played Ferris Bueller?
I can't remember now, but he wasn't.
Some Nomar.
Some schnook.
So looking back on this now, obviously you guys didn't have as much of a connection to it as I did. I've not sort of seen it the whole way through, or only sort of seen it once.
How old would you have been when you saw it then?
What, first time? 6 or 7? I remember it's definitely the first time I'd ever heard Twist and Shout, and I thought it was a really good song. It reminded me of Chubby Checker and the Fat Boys at the time. But then obviously it was just on telly in the sort of late 80s and early 90s quite a bit, wasn't it? So you watched quite a bit. For this episode we'll try 2 criteria, because you can't really rate these films out of 10. I think it's too much.
I could.
Context. Could you? Well, it's too broken. So I thought whether we'd say whether it's, aged really well, it's aged like fine wine, or whether that shit's turned to vinegar. So what would you say? Do you say it's aged well, or is it turned to shit?
I think it's definitely aged well.
It's aged really well.
It has.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no points where you're like, oh, that was bad. Like, if you CGI a film or something like that, you got your obvious points of reference to look at. There's nothing to pick fault with it, because it's just a well-told story of its time that's still relevant now.
You get that feeling of like melancholy where it's like a time that's passing or a time that's over, with the whole school thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you say, it's encapsulated a moment. It's like, that's sort of gone now. Or
he said that though, didn't he? That was part of his dialogue. He sort of mentioned that they would, they'd have summer, get back together, then go to college, and then probably drift apart. So it was kind of like that was it. It was almost like setting you up to root for them to have a good time.
Well, the whole life moves pretty fast.
Yeah.
It's this whole sort of idea of it all. Yeah, I think the same here. I think it's aged really well. I think it's a really interesting film. I think lots of actors today, like I said, Ryan Reynolds being one, he might as well be Ferris Bueller, Ryan Reynolds, during the way that he sort of acts in the sort of films. I think a lot of the smart aleck kind of humour you have in things.
Well, I think he's our age, isn't he? He's like
Who?
Ryan Reynolds. He's like early 40s.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he would have been about the same age as me when it came out. So he'd have been about 6, so he would have definitely grown up with that sort of stuff and made his choice probably very early.
Well, you see, it's massively influenced so many other comedies that have come after, I think, with its sort of style of humour.
Yeah, just tons.
And everything. So, yeah, it's definitely aged.
But almost everything you sort of say that John Hughes has been involved in, like if I said Tim Burton, you would know what sort of film I was on about. And it's kind of like if I say John Hughes, never really thought about it before, but it does all have that slight sort of
Well,
feel-good factor about sort of just, going nuts at some occasion or whatever. And
they're all, I think they're all set in Chicago, all of his films, a majority of them are, aren't they? So, yeah, well, if you were going to give it a score out of 10, what would you give it?
it's radical.
I would give it 8.5.
Ooh.
I can't really find fault with it, to be honest.
You give it 10 then.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I am actually, because for what it is, you can't go wrong.
I'd give it a 10. It's so hard not to, because it's such a classic. I can't imagine any of it being any different. It's like trying to give a score to Ghostbusters or something. Do you know what I mean? It's like
that's why I'm not giving it a 10. It's not Ghostbusters.
Even if you don't love films, you can't hate this film. There's nothing about it to hate.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's
I'm sure the majority of you, if you're listening to this 80s film podcast, have probably seen Ferris Bueller. So,
well, if they haven't, I don't know what.
Get it on the list straight away. Do it as
they shouldn't have listened to this first.
You should have watched it and then listened to this.
Well, we didn't have the budget to let them know, did we, that it was coming? So it's not.
Well, but we can let them know about next week's episode.
Ooh, it's exciting times.
Yes.
I got to choose who went next, and I chose Murph, and then you chose.
I chose the year for you, 1989.
And 1989, man, that is such a good year.
We haven't heard this, by the way.
No, these guys don't know what it is. So there was loads of ones. I mean, you got so many good films out in '89, and I could have picked. Like, I think I got really torn between about 4 or 5. But the one I've decided to go with is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Ooh.
So I picked that one because I remember it being fantastic. I loved it when I was a kid. I probably haven't watched it.
We'll save us for next week.
For ages. But that was why I picked it anyway. So my memories of it are great, and I can't wait to see it again.
Cool.
Are you guys familiar with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
I'm going to tell you next week.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I could tell you next week as well.
Right, so...
I'll tell you the week after.
Well, the next person's Lee. So, Lee, I will tell you your year.
Okay.
You've got a pick for next week, so you've got a week to sort of think about it and decide what film. And for you, I am going to say 1982.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I have to go.
I'll be interested. I'm going to have a look myself and see, because...
I shall have a look myself.
That'll be great. Yeah, that's going to be cool.
All right, cool. Well, so that was the first episode of VHS Showdown. We hope you enjoyed it. Leave your complaints and your suggestions of how to improve it, I guess, in the comments. And yes, we'll see you next week for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah.
Nice. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
You're still here? It's over.